beautiful friend, it's Marnie. Welcome back to Life is Delicious. Before we get started, I just wanted to ask you a quick question. How many times this week did you say yes to things that you really wanted to say no to? And how many times did you accommodate someone else's wishes so that they would stay comfortable? Well, in fact, you were not. The reason I ask is because this has become a very common situation for women who overfunction, especially when we have a lot on our plate. So if you feel like you've been overfunctioning or people-pleasing or maybe just doing more than you actually feel like you can do happily, I've created something just for you. It's called the 5-Day Midlife Boundary Reset. It's a 5-day email program where we do some quick resets that help to rewire the fear of disappointing others, and it helps us stop disappointing ourselves. Join me over at lifeisdelicious.ca, where it's free to sign up, and it will really give you some quick inspiration for getting your boundaries back on track. Please do click on that good old subscribe button. I love your support, and it's incredible to see your beautiful comments and how many of you are sharing these episodes with the people in your life that you love. I'm so grateful to be here with you, and I'm so excited to be on this crazy midlife adventure with all of you. Thank you for subscribing. It truly means the world. Okay, back to the show. Welcome back. Today I have an awesome guest who has done some pretty extraordinary travel, and her name is Megan Weinheimer, and she is a solo travel advocate, a content creator, and founder of the Solo Travel Sisterhood, a free community built to give aspiring female solo travelers the courage and confidence to see the world on their own terms. Her solo travel journey began as something much more personal. When her marriage ended in a divorce at 40, sudden and traumatic, it was nothing she saw coming, and she found herself having to rebuild her life from the ground up. And travel became her way through it, reconnecting with who she was and discovering who she could still become, one trip at a time. What started as a healing journey became a calling. And since then, she's completed 8 solo trips, explored 15 countries, and set foot in 44 U.S. states. And she's made it her mission to help other women to take that same brave first step. Through the Solo Travel Sisterhood, Megan shares the practical tools and honest encouragement women need to go from, "I could never do that alone," to booking the ticket, proving that solo travel isn't about being alone. It's about coming home to yourself. She's written a brand new book called Belong to Where You Are, a journey of solo travel, self-discovery, and starting over. And I can't wait to have this conversation. I think you're going to love it. So grab yourself a cup of tea or a glass of wine or pop in those earbuds. You're not going to want to miss this. Welcome to the show, Megan. Tell us a little bit about how you used travel as medicine to heal a pretty difficult chapter.
Sure. Well, Marnie, thank you for having me on. I'm very excited to be here. I am Megan, and originally I'm from Indiana. Now I live in the Tampa Bay, Florida area. And my journey kind of kicked off about 4 years ago. And I found myself at 40 years old and getting divorced, which I think a lot of women who have gone through that experience never thought in a million years that they would be navigating this new chapter. And it was very unexpected. It was very painful and traumatic. And I chose, I think when you go through those, when life like rips out the rug out from underneath you, you have 2 choices. You can either sink or swim. And so for me, I chose to swim. And once everything, as you know, when you go through divorce, you have a never-ending checklist of things to do and papers to sign and, divvying up everything and all that. And I knew that once that process came to an end, that I would need to fill my life somehow. I would need to fill the void and really start thinking about what kind of life I wanted to build for myself. And so it kind of inspired me to go on a 2-month trip to Portugal, about 4 months after my divorce was finalized. And Portugal healed me in ways I can't even explain. Just being out of your own environment that you've kind of been marinating in for for a while and trying to get your footing. It's so important to get out of your own zip code. And there were circumstances that allowed me to rent my apartment to friends for 2 months. And I took off and I hopped a flight to Ponta Delgada in the Azores, which is a little Portuguese island chain in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. At the time, I was very fortunate and I had a remote job, so I could work and travel at the same time. And I just have not stopped having this curiosity for our world and curiosity for other cultures and places and cuisine and wine and all of the things that make our world so special. And once I had that experience in Portugal, I knew that was the domino that's knocking over this experience of solo travel, and not just for me experiencing solo travel, but for it became a purpose for me to share my story and my experience with other women who have perhaps gone through this shared experience of life ripping the rug out from under you and really doing something really cool and different and a challenge and something that you can invest in where you're not going to lose your investment. And for me, sharing my story and sharing about my travels and how I did it and, where I'm going, what I'm doing has been really, really healing for me, because I hear the stories of other women specifically that say, wow, you inspired me to do this, or you inspired me to go on my first solo trip. And that to me is just like, it's so delicious. No pun intended, but it really is such a wonderful way to give back. Because I know when I was going through my divorce, there were so many people who I knew personally and also who I didn't know. I just found through social media, or I found through, books or whatever. And their voices absolutely made such a huge impact in my healing. And for me, I want to pay it forward and really help other women learn how to heal through travel and know that there is a light at the other end of the tunnel.
I was reading in one of the chapters of your book that you had gone to see Liz Gilbert live and in person.
Yes.
And I love that story that she told you, where she talks about fear coming along for the ride as a passenger, but not in the driver's seat. Tell us how that impacted you and how that impacted your own journey.
Yes, that was such an amazing experience. I am a huge Elizabeth Gilbert fan. She's primarily known for her book Eat, Pray, Love, which then became the smash movie. But I'm also a big fan of her book Big Magic. That is the book that oh my gosh, it is incredible. And that is a book, I don't know if you're like this, but I have books I will never lend out to anyone, because it is like dog-eared and everything is marked up, and that's a book I will never loan anybody ever.
Well, I think there are some books that are timeless, and that is definitely one of them for sure.
Absolutely. So I attended a creativity summit. It was in Northern Georgia in 2024, and the talks that she gave at this creativity retreat were absolutely just so inspiring. They took your breath away, and they gave you so much optimism and hope. The one thing that she talked about was a little bit along the vein of Eat, Pray, Love. And she said, when I wrote the book, I didn't realize how many women wanted to throw it all away and just go travel. And I just talked a little bit about that in my book, about I kind of was that same way toward the end of my marriage. But then she also talked about in Big Magic the idea that fear is going to be with you no matter what. It's going to sit next to you in the passenger seat, but you have to be the driver, and you have to say, shut up, I know you're here, that's fine, but I'm driving this car, and you're just going to stay there and be quiet, and just more so have an acceptance of fear no matter what you do, and don't let it be the driver of your life, so to speak.
I don't know about you, but I'm not a fan of over-the-counter pain medications of any kind. But at this stage of life, almost everyone I know is living with some sort of chronic pain, inflammation, joint distress, or injury, not to mention the crazy symptoms that come along with menopause. The Freedom Super Patch is designed to help provide relief from minor aches and pains. It's safe, all-natural, non-invasive, and 100% drug-free, with no ingredients or side effects. Super Patch uses vibro-tactile technology to stimulate the skin's neural response through a unique pattern similar to a QR code that sends signals to the brain and your nervous system to generate less discomfort and stimulate better movement. You can get 25% off your first order at lifeisdelicious.superpatch.com. Give yourself the gift of drug-free pain relief with the Freedom Super Patch. That's lifeisdelicious.superpatch.com for a 25% discount. I couldn't agree more. Tell us how you chose the title for your book, Belong to Where You Are. I think it's really powerful. Did it have anything to do with your first trip to Portugal? And did you feel a sense of belonging once you stepped away from the life that you previously knew?
Sure. Well, actually, the title came from kind of the theme of my life up until that point. I had lived in different places. I've lived in, on the Jersey Shore. I've lived in Buffalo. I've lived in Toronto for a hot minute. I've lived in Florida. And so I always, wherever I was, I just made sure that I made it my own and I made it my home. And I belonged in some way, shape, or form, even though, I may have stuck out like a sore thumb because I was going from Indiana to New Jersey, and that was quite the adjustment. But I will say, yes, exactly. I'm this little Midwest girl in her early 20s, just, heading out to the East Coast. So I've always felt a sense of no matter where you are, you have the right to belong, and you have the right to create your life and to build a community and make friends. And I think for me, that is one of the biggest blessings and silver linings to, all of the really difficult challenge that I've had to face is I have friends in, it seems like every state. I have friends in multiple countries now. And I look back and I'm like, that is so incredible that I've got this wonderful circle of people from all walks of life. From, I'm also kind of a creature of habit, and I have the same best friend I've had since high school. And that's very rare, and I recognize that, and that's what makes it so special. I've got people who I'm very, very close with still in Indiana, and I've got friends in all parts of the world and all parts of the country. And so and that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't allowed myself to connect with people and to belong to a tribe or belong to a circle of friends. And so for me, that's kind of where the Belong to Where You Are stemmed from. And then also when I started, really actively solo traveling, connecting with people in different countries. And again, I have friends in now multiple countries, which is crazy to me. It's wonderful, and it's such a blessing. So that's where the title stemmed from, is just belonging to, no matter where you are in the world, you have the right to belong and to, connect with other people.
Well, that's a lot of what we talk about here on the podcast is intentional living. And that means making choices that support you and help you to create happiness wherever you are. And something only you can do for yourself. And it sounds like you did that. So take us back to that very first trip to Portugal. What were those first few days like, and when you bumped up against some of those hard, really uncomfortable feelings, how did you navigate past it?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I will say, as soon as I flew from Tampa to Boston, and then Boston to Ponta Delgada in the Azores, and it was an overnight flight. I got in about 6 o'clock in the morning, got through customs fine, no problem. And my first task was to check into my Airbnb. And I always like to be prepared no matter what it is, whether it's professionally, whether it's personally. So I had practiced some very basic Portuguese, but it's common knowledge that many Portuguese residents they do know English. So I wasn't too terribly nervous. But as soon as I got my suitcase and I go to get a taxi to take me to my Airbnb, and I asked the gentleman, the taxi driver, I said, "Oh, você fala inglês?" Which means, "Do you speak English?" And he said, "No." I was like,
Oh
"Oh,
no.
wait. Oh boy." I was like, "Okay." So I pulled out my phone, I pulled up the address to my Airbnb and gave it to him, and I said, "Aqui," which means here. And so he's like, "Okay." He's like, "See." So and then so he's like driving like he's in the Indianapolis 500. It was absolutely wild. So that was my first like, oh my gosh moment. My second moment was European locks are very different than ours. Their key system is really weird, and I could not figure out how to work the key in my Airbnb when I was coming back from getting groceries. And I was sleep deprived, obviously, but I was also just, I couldn't figure out how to get this stupid key to work. And I'm frantically WhatsApping my Airbnb host, and I'm almost in tears. And so it's just those moments where that can be really frustrating. And certainly I've had those in not just on my first Portuguese trip, but it seems like on every trip. I have something that just kind of goes a little bit awry, and you just have to prepare for them. And you just have to just pause when you find yourself like when your nervous system is a little dysregulated. You just have to take a pause, take a deep breath, and then usually the answer will come to you, or you'll unlock the door on your own. And
Well, that's a big piece of building resilience and learning that we can trust ourselves to figure things out. And I think as we get older, we can look back at those obstacles and see our resourcefulness and say, I didn't know what I was made of back then. But you know what? I do now.
right, right. And for me, I am a very, very frustrated learner. Like, yeah, I can usually pick things up pretty quickly, but if something takes me a little bit longer, I get very impatient with myself. And so that's something that I'm learning how to overcome, because I know it's an area of improvement that I can certainly lean into. When you come across those challenges and those frustrations, it's just, again, making you a smarter traveler, number one, because then next time you know how to do the thing you're going to do. And number two, it's like you said, to your point, teaching you that resilience. And that resilience can be applied in a lot of different aspects in your life. So it's not a fun lesson to learn, but it's certainly a necessary lesson to learn.
Absolutely. I love this other quote from your book. I think it's really powerful, so I'm going to read it. The decisiveness doesn't come knocking softly at the door with an armful of flowers. It comes when the discomfort of change becomes less painful than the torture of staying stuck. Boy, can I relate to that. I mean, I've been divorced twice, and I do believe that sometimes staying stuck is the way more painful option, for sure.
I do too. It's very powerful because going back to my earlier quote, like I knew for myself I could either sink or I could swim. And sinking is the easy way out. Swimming is the more difficult way out. And I feel that making hard decisions, whether it be, to go on a solo trip or to file for divorce or whatever it may be, that decisiveness doesn't come to us easily sometimes. It sometimes takes a long time for us to finally be ready to do the hard thing. And that's another one of my favorite quotes is by Glennon Doyle is we can do hard things. That's another favorite book of mine.
I think what's interesting about decisiveness is that it's a muscle we build. And when we choose not to decide, it leaves us standing in this sort of purgatory out of our pain. But when we say, I'm choosing this, and I know it's going to be hard, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because you know what? we can do hard things.
Exactly. And, and I also look back and I must give my parents some credit for sure because they raised me to be independent. They raised me to get an education. They raised me to be able to be self sustainable. And so, a lot of that was from my upbringing. So I do give them a lot of credit. And also, we traveled a lot as a family as well. So that the travel has always kind of been a part of my life from the get-go. And but I know there are women who aren't as fortunate, who weren't raised to be self-sustaining and weren't raised with an independent mindset. But that's not to say they have to stay there. They can be more independent. They can be um, rely on themselves and to go do the hard things.
Can you give us a few tips for someone who's never even thought of traveling on their own before?
Sure, sure. Well, first of all, to your point, making the decision to go. Just make the decision. I'm going to go on my first solo trip within 6 months or within the year. So I think just knowing that you want to do it and then also fully accept that fear is going to be right next to you and it is going to be a little uncomfortable. I think that's first and foremost, just getting in that mindset of I'm going to do this and I know it's going to be a little uncomfortable. So that would be my first tip. That's yes. The second tip for me is, when we talk about solo travel, I think there's a big misconception that solo travel has to be into another country or another continent or really, really far away. But that's not the case at all. It could be one state over. It could be one town over. It could be, a 2 hour flight. It doesn't have to be off in this crazy magical place of, somewhere in another country. Now, I dove right in like a lunatic and I went to I went to Iceland just because I could. So you don't have to go big. Or you don't have to go to another country or go real far. You can stay within your own country. That's totally fine.
Yeah, start small and
Start small
baby
and build
steps,
your
right?
way up. Yep. And to your point about resiliency being a muscle, bravery is the same thing. It's a muscle and you have to work it. And you don't gain muscle mass in your body by lifting 100-pound weights right off the bat. You start small and you build your way up. So that's what I would say to keep in mind is just pick somewhere that's relatively near where you are, that speaks to you. And it can be somewhere like, oh wow, I've never been to Chicago before. I've never been to Tampa before. I've never been to San Diego before. And so just think about those places that you've always wanted to go to and just never have, and start small and work your way up. So that would be my second tip. And then my third tip would be don't strive for perfection. Um, don't strive for the perfect trip, the perfect price, the perfect, hotel. Just leave yourself open to options. And you're going to make mistakes. I still make mistakes on my eighth solo trip. And so don't think you're going to get it right the very first time because you're not going to get it right the eighth time. Because again, I just got back from Zurich and Milan 2 weeks ago, and there were some things I messed up. So don't ever strive for perfection. And then my very last tip is don't overplan. And this was a big one for me because I like to talk to people, and so I would not overbook or overplan my trip, only because you may go to a local restaurant and talk to the bartender, and they may tell you, oh hey, you need to go here because they've got the best blah blah blah, or you need to do this excursion, or you need to do that, because a lot of my best experiences were with local people, that were recommendations from local residents. And if you have your trip completely packed from sun up to sundown, you're not going to have the opportunity to go do those cool things. So just leaving room for magic and leaving room for other things that are not on your radar is really, really important. So I'd say if you start with those 4 tips, you're going to be just fine.
I think what's really interesting is that I also love to have some flexibility and to be able to leave room for the spontaneous things to show up. I have this favorite saying that goes, never leave fun to find fun. And it has served me really well because in this generation of FOMO or fear of missing out, often we're having a great time somewhere, but in the interest of seeing everything, we can let a great experience go for a mediocre one. So I incorporated that early into my life, and it's been a really good thing for me.
Yes, I could not agree with you more. I know that there were some places where I would go to, and they were, again, I made a friend and they would take me to this really cool place. And I would have known to go there had I not, again, left room for that magic. So yeah, it's just about, and connecting with people too. That kind of goes back to that principle of just being open to connecting with people because they can lead you to some really cool places.
Give us some insight into the Solo Travel Sisterhood and tell us what people can expect from that community.
Right. Well, the Solo Travel Sisterhood is my free solo travel community for women who are aspiring to be solo travelers but aren't quite, have that bravery muscle worked out yet. So what I share inside the Solo Travel Sisterhood is, number one, inspiration and encouragement, and then also practical tips. So I provide free lives every single Sunday, and this can be from topics from, solo travel spending 101. That was last week's topic. I've shared my trip recap from Zurich and Milan. I've shared tips for building confidence and why being nervous is okay. So we're just a very supportive community of women who want to start solo traveling but aren't sure where to start. So it's completely free to join, and it's been like a really amazing experience. We've got close to 100 members already, and I just launched it maybe 3 weeks ago.
I'd like to touch on a few tips you could share with us regarding keeping safe when traveling alone.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great topic, and we talk a lot about that as well. The safety of solo travel. Well, I would say first and foremost, share your location with trusted loved ones, even though they're not with you. If somebody knows where you are at all times and can kind of track you or see where your last known location is, that's always very helpful. And then also make sure that your loved ones have an itinerary of your addresses, where you're staying, your flight information, train information, things like that. So that's kind of something you can set up before you go. This is my own personal rule of thumb, that whenever I go to a restaurant or go somewhere and I'm paying for something, I make sure that my wallet stays in my purse, and I always make sure that my credit card, preferably my travel credit card, is attached to my Apple Pay. So anytime I go to pay for something, I just use my phone to utilize the tap to pay feature. So then I'm not getting in and out of my purse. Things don't accidentally fall out. No one sees how much cash I have, things like that. So just making sure that you aren't digging into your purse all the time, and that just increases the risk that something's going to fall out. So just use your phone to pay for things. And that, again, is my rule of thumb. Something else that my rule of thumb is making sure that you have a portable phone charger with you. My phone is my life when I travel. Like, Google Maps is my life when I travel. So I want to make sure that I know where I'm going. I have access to an Uber. I have access to, a train schedule or a metro schedule. And I can't do that if I don't have power in my phone. So just making sure that you have that portable phone charger, just in case, your phone battery gets low or anything like that, because you do not want a dead phone whenever you are out and about exploring a community. And also, I guess my next tip is just listening to your gut. And I think, as women, we tend to, have our guard up, and that's okay. That's a good thing. If you go to a restaurant and strike up a conversation with someone at the bar, there's no harm in that. But just make sure you don't tell them where you're staying. You know what I mean? Make sure you don't tell them like where you're staying or anything like that. And again, just use good judgment. again, listen to your gut. If something is off about a person or a situation is off, if you find yourself in an area that you're like, I don't know about this, turn around and go back the other way and call an Uber and have them take you home. That's just, again, I've personally never been in that situation where I felt uncomfortable walking anywhere. But also too, another rule of thumb of mine is that I don't walk out past sunset. I don't walk in the dark. Yeah, I don't walk in the dark. Now I can be out after dark, but I always make sure like I'm getting an Uber home and not walking somewhere. Unless it's a city I am familiar with. So I will say that I love Portugal. It's one of those cities that just hits. It hits my heart a lot. And I will say that I do feel safe in that city walking around after dark, but I'm also in the city itself, and there are a lot of people that are out and about. So I will say that if there are other people that are out and about, that's fine. But if you're, walking down a dark street by yourself, you may want to, go back to where you were and call an Uber to take you home.
I mean, a lot of it is common sense, but it's good to think about so you don't deliberately put yourself in harm's way. Okay, when will your book, Belong to Where You Are, be available, and where will we be able to get it?
It will be available late 2026 to early 2027. Okay. So it's going to be coming out. And then also, along with that, in September 2026, I'm going to be launching the Belong to Where You Are podcast, which I am so excited about, and I hope you will be a guest.
Oh,
so yeah, I've got a lot going on in the Belong to Where You Are realm, and I couldn't be more excited. I feel like I'm in my purpose right now. I want to build something that is going to elevate humanity, and it's going to encourage women to just go do something really cool. Because despite the fear, despite the uncomfortable situations you may be in, despite when you get, I cannot explain and describe the feeling that I had when I came home from Iceland, that very first trip I ever took. I was like, I actually sat at my kitchen table and I was like, oh my God, I did that. That was so cool. I cannot believe I was like snorkeling in between two tectonic plates. And I can't believe that I did this and that. And it was, I sat there just in awe of myself. And I want every woman to feel that awe of themselves once they go on their first solo trip, because it is a pride in yourself that, again, I can't describe. It's so cool.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's important to have moments where we feel really proud of ourselves. Not only does it build that resilience within us, but it allows us to look back into the rearview mirror and say, you know what? I did that, and it was awesome.
Yes, and it's the pride in yourself, and it's also celebrating yourself. And for whatever reason, women as a whole have such a hard time doing that. Whether it be a big win or a little win. And, I like I said, I just got back from Zurich and Milan, and I took myself on a birthday trip because I am a tried and true Leo. And if anybody knows or has a Leo in their life, we love our birthday and we celebrate the hell out of our birthday. And so this year I took myself on a birthday trip, and I remember sitting at a rooftop bar in Milan. And I'm overlooking the Duomo de Milano, which is their famous cathedral. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I did this. Like, this is great. And even though I was like on my own and I was there solo, I never felt alone because I had people texting me and calling me and sending me DMs and wishing me happy birthday. So I felt love from back home all day long. And so even though I was by myself, I was strolling around, I was eating gelato, I was drinking wine and martinis, and took myself to a nice dinner. And I mean, it was just freaking awesome. Yeah. And so it's like, I may do, and the weekend before, my friends here in Florida, we had gone out and celebrated my birthday. So it's like, a birthday is not a day, it's a season.
100%. I'm a true blue Aries, and I like to think of it as, birthday month. And seriously, why not? We need to celebrate being alive and being comfortable in our own skin, and I'm all for it.
Yes.
Before we wrap up, I just wanted to touch on the question that a lot of people think that when you travel solo, you are going to be constantly alone or lonely. But I've seen so many of my friends who say they've met so many people that way, and they never would have met them if they had been, say, traveling with a partner, a spouse, or even another girlfriend. So I think there are wonderful opportunities to meet new people if we're open to it. What are your thoughts around that?
I could not agree more. It's so funny because I was looking at, I was doing a clearinghouse of Instagram, and it's so funny because some of the people that I'm Instagram friends with, a lot of them are people I met on my solo travels. I mean, and I meet, and I get this question a lot about where you meet people when you solo travel. And I want to say a majority of them I met on tours, and that's a really great way to meet people. My foolproof tour method is going on Airbnb and booking a tour through Airbnb. I've had 100% success rate with them. So meeting people on tours, yeah, and then meeting people just out and about, like sitting at the bar. I think that is the best hack. It's interesting because I was in Panama, in the country of Panama, in May of 2025. And being from Indiana, I am a huge Indianapolis Colts fan, and I'm a huge Indiana Pacers fan. And the Pacers were in the conference finals while I was in Panama, and I was like, I have to find a bar. I have to watch the game, because I'm diehard like that. And I end up at a Hooters in Panama, which was hilarious because I am so anti-American chain in another country anywhere I go. And so I was not happy that I had to go to a Hooters, but I went and I actually had the best time, and I met some of the nicest people. And, especially you can meet other Americans whenever you go to places like that. If there's like a sporting event or something that's going on and you want to go watch. And, to me, that was a wonderful place to meet people. But even though, I felt like, going to an American chain was a little sacrilegious, but you got to do what you got to do for your team, right? So,
right.
So yeah, yeah. But no, I have met some absolutely fabulous people when I've been on my trips, and they're the memories that it's the people that make the memories, and you can go to the most beautiful outlook and spot by yourself. But when you're with other people, there's just something about it that makes it that much more magical. So, yes, some of the best people I've met have been on my solo trips.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to throw you a curveball. At the end of every show, I like to ask my guest, what is the number one ingredient in your recipe for a delicious life?
Oh, I love that question. I have a lot of ingredients, but I think for me is making sure that no matter what it is you're building or cooking up, if you will, to stay with the delicious theme, I will say when you're going through an uncertain time in reinventing yourself, just be sure to give yourself grace and give yourself room to feel your emotions, whether they be challenging or good. I mean, emotions, they're not good or bad, they just are. But give yourself grace while you're figuring it out. And that was the one thing I wish I had done for myself, is give myself a little bit more grace while I was figuring it out. And I still don't. I'm working on it. Hey, we are all, as humans, we are all work in progress. Every single day. We are never going to be completely figured out. We're never going to have it all put together. We are always going to be a work in progress. So just giving yourself that grace while you're figuring it out. And also, for me, relying on my tribe has been crucial, especially through those really, really devastating moments in my life. I am so, so fortunate that I have the best family and friends, both here in Florida and afar, that have just lifted me up when I needed it the most. And and I'm just grateful for them every day. You know, they're all there for the wins, they're there for the losses, they're there to celebrate and to, you know, drown your sorrows in wine if you're having a bad day. So, you know,
Well
it's
done.
yeah, it's about the people and making sure that those relationships are fostered. And you know, I'm very, very fortunate. I will say I've got a lot of people in my life who I love and who love me, and having that tribe is absolutely been crucial to me.
Well, those are two pretty awesome ingredients. Thank you so much, Megan, for being here. I think it was really fun and informative. I think it was really a fun and informative conversation. I will put the link to all your social media posts in the show notes below, and we'll have to do this again.
Thank you so much, Marnie. I appreciate you having me on.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope it inspired you or motivated you in some way to keep going and to create your very best life. If you did, would you take 5 quick minutes to leave me a review on Apple Podcasts? It's the best way for me to know that you are enjoying the show, and it helps other listeners find me as well. And while you're at it, head over to lifeisdelicious.ca and sign up for my email newsletter. It's like a warm hug from me every week, and not only will you get first access to new episodes, I've also put together a free 5-day email experience called the Midlife Boundary Reset, where you'll get 5 days of insights, mindset shifts, and daily journal prompts to help you gently start choosing yourself again and create better boundaries without guilt, drama, or burning bridges. I've put the link in the show notes as well, and I think you're going to love it. One last thing, if you know someone who would enjoy an episode like this, please do them a favor and share it with them. It's the best gift you can give someone that you love. If no one has told you today, there is no one on this planet that is exactly like you. And this world is a better place because you're here. So thank you for being here. I'll be back next week, and I hope you'll join me right here on Life is Delicious.